I'm going to bring out Kevin for our next talk. So Kevin, come on out. Why NFTs will eat the world. NFTs are very hungry, everybody. Munch, munch, munch. Tell us all about it, Kevin.
Thanks, Ian. It's lunchtime, so I felt like eating the world was an appropriate title for the talk. My name's Kevin Lehtiniitty. I'm the co-founder of a company called Fortress.xyz. Prior to that, I was the co-founder of a company called Prime Trust, which those of you in the B2B space and in crypto probably know that name and that brand quite well. One of the stories or questions that I get asked the most is why leave Prime to do Fortress, right? As a founder, it's very difficult to leave your baby, to kind of leave that thing that you've invested. We started in 2017, that you've spent 4 or 5 years of your life building. And there's a lot of factors, but the simple answer is that I'm deeply passionate about what I think Web3 means to the world. And I think Web3 is completely transformational to everything that we do. What I'm very tired of, though, is hearing about expensive JPEGs, right-click save, walking through the convention area here the past couple of days, hearing people talk about mint passes, the latest alpha, things of that nature. I think as an industry we're completely missing the point. And I'm going to try to spend the next 10 minutes not seeming like an old man shouting out a window, because I have a tendency to do that sometimes when I talk about Web3. But I think it's really important that we kind of go back to the primitives. And we kind of talk about what is a blockchain before we can understand how it really changes our future for the next decade, for the next 20 years, for the foreseeable, basically, rest of humanity. And fundamentally, all a blockchain is a distributed, trustless, public ledger, right? That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a ledger. And if you go back to EIP 721 and some of those original standards, NFTs were never about the content. NFTs were a way, a key, to represent things on this ledger. So where I think we stand today is very similar to kind of the internet in the 90s, right? When I was running around in a diaper and picking my friend's nose. When the internet was coming out in the 90s, there were some very obvious killer use cases, right? It's like email, obvious killer use case in the 90s for the internet. But put anybody back then and have them try to predict Amazon and e-commerce, glass rectangles in everyone's pockets, Netflix streaming 4K content to everybody's homes. Those weren't things that people understood yet. And I think when you think of a ledger, the obvious killer use case, or the first one that comes to mind, is financial. It's money, right? We've been putting money on ledgers since the Medicis popularized banking so many years ago with their kind of 2-column ledgering system. And that's where I feel like we are now. We're kind of sitting in this world where we have money on a ledger, but there's so much more that's going to come from it. Maybe it feels a little bit more like 2001 these days with the market. I was talking about that a little bit yesterday. And fundamentally, what happened during the dot-com crash was it didn't make the internet go away, right? And the market crash today isn't making crypto or NFTs go away. So if we have this ledger, what is an NFT fundamentally? An NFT is not art, an NFT is not a security, an NFT isn't an asset in and of itself. An NFT is a technology that can represent other assets. NFTs can represent art, NFTs can represent securities, NFTs can represent cash flows, NFTs can represent data, information, wills, estates, health records, things like that. The NFT isn't a thing. The NFT is just a technology layer. Just like the internet's not really a thing. The internet's a technology layer that's touched all of our lives and continues to transform every industry. The same very thing is true about the blockchain. And I'll give you a few examples of projects that I think are very interesting. My friend Justin started a platform called Royal, which allows people to invest in artists. I think it's a phenomenal concept. Traditionally in music, fans haven't had any upside in helping bring artists to market. And their fan base is their #1 source of new listens, of new people coming into the music, things like that. You could buy a CD, you can buy merch, you can buy a show ticket, things of that nature. But you can't actually invest in, or you can't really own part of the artist. But through Royal, you can own fractional rights like any other rights holder to someone's song. And as that song gets more listens, it gets more plays on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, all those different platforms. As a rights holder, you actually get real-world cash flow from that. Now, no one, or at least I would speculate, very few people who are buying these things on Royal are buying an NFT. No one cares. It's like everybody who logs into a Zoom meeting in the mornings, no one's thinking, okay, I gotta connect to TCP/IP and I gotta do these different things. No one cares. The technology needs to be behind the scenes for mass market kind of adoption. You're buying rights, you're investing in a musician that you love to get upside potential. I've had the chance to get to know Cody and some of the team at Autograph pretty well the last few months, and they've done something very similar. No one who goes on Autograph, and they've curated some of the world's top athletes, from Tom Brady to Wayne Gretzky to Tiger Woods to things like that, and they've taken what's been a traditionally physical industry, baseball cards, sports memorabilia, things like that, and they've digitized it. No one who goes on Autograph and buys a Tom Brady collectible is buying it because they think NFTs are ridiculously cool, right? There was an article that came out a couple days ago that was saying your average general consumer is 3 or 4 times more likely to buy a sports collectible on a blockchain than they are to buy a currency on a blockchain. And that's because people don't really fundamentally care that it's an NFT. People buy value. People don't buy a technology layer. So these sports collectibles and things like that, those are the sorts of things that people want to buy, not investing in the latest rug, which we were arguing about at kind of the Google panel yesterday. And I'll give you one more example that I think is interesting, more on the B2B or the enterprise side. So there's a company that manufactures surgical devices, and this isn't something that they want to do. This is something that they're doing today. And I think this is a good example of more of how NFTs become part of daily life. They have a massive fraud problem in the medical devices industry. So these guys make spinal cages, surgical screws, rods, things like that go in people's bodies. And what they found is these are very expensive items, right? We've all gotten hospital bills, and I'm not going to rant about how healthcare is broken in this country. But their biggest problem is people are manufacturing screws, rods, cages, things like that on lathes in their garages. And they're passing them off as this medical device's part. So a surgeon gets it through an inventory shipment, they put it in somebody's body, and it's not sanitary. It fails, the part has an issue, and that creates a massive problem around insurance claims, malpractice claims, things like that this surgical device company's parts failed inside a human being. Not to mention the actual human problem of someone stuck something in someone's body that was made in a garage, the part failed, and now they're back for spinal surgery again, or something like that. So what they're doing literally today, what they're already doing, is they're minting NFTs for every part that they manufacture. And they're using these NFTs and they're using the blockchain to prove authenticity and provenance, that, hey, this part that was manufactured by us is actually manufactured by us. And when that NFT is burned, when that part's put in someone's body during surgery, the blockchain's able to record information around the patients, and granted this is all very sensitive with the HIPAA guidelines and things like that, but when it was used, the patients it was used in, who the surgeon was, some details of the surgery, things of that nature. These are things that are already happening. This is where we start to go. NFTs are like the internet. We live in a non-fungible world, fundamentally. We have homes, cars, significant others are hopefully non-fungible. We just live in a world where most of our assets are non-fungible. And we live in a world where putting things on a distributed ledger, making things open, doing provenance, doing collectibles, doing financial instruments, cash flows, ticketing, eventually when some of the stuff happens, I don't know, call it 50 years from now, I feel like I just finally got my COVID results on my phone. We'll have health records on the blockchains. We'll have estates, wills, legal contracts, all those things on the blockchains. All of those, every legal contract is non-fungible from another one. Those are all ways that NFTs are going to come into our lives. And those are all reasons why we decided that we were going to start Fortress, which at a high level basically just provides Web3 infrastructure. So what we do is we have infrastructure around minting, around wallets. We own a trust company, which gives us the right regulatory frameworks that we need to custody real-world assets that are then tokenized. So when this takes the real estate market by storm and disintermediates title insurance and everything like that, you can actually take that real property, put it in a third-party custodian, so you're not buying the Brooklyn Bridge, all those sorts of very fun things, payments, compliance, trading, all that's the infrastructure that we do. So if you want to build a Web3 ticketing platform, you don't have to be an expert at blockchain engineering. You just have to focus on building a ticketing platform. And our humble hope is that we can be a participant in kind of bringing tokenized assets and tokenization of the world to the masses. where we can start to power a bunch of other innovators, a bunch of other platforms, and people who really want to help NFTs change the world. Everything we do is multi-chain. We believe blockchains are like a religion, and I'm certainly not here to preach and change anybody's minds. We support the EVM world around ETH, around Polygon, things like that. I think we announced about half an hour ago that we're now supporting Solana. We announced the partnership with them. But really, before someone grabs a cane and rips me off the stage in their one wheel, the thing that I really want to impart on people who have endured my rant for the last 10 minutes is to not think of NFTs as JPEGs, and to think as NFTs as a way of tokenizing the non-fungible assets that are in our daily lives. And that's not going to happen by us doing it. That's going to happen by people like everybody in this room building platforms that leverage the blockchain technology to go and tokenize those assets, the autographs, the royals, and the things that all of you are building. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much.